We're back. We are back, everybody, and thank you very much for tuning in. If you have come here by way of the thumbnail for this video, you may be wondering why I'm flicking the V's. The V's aren't seen as insulting in most countries. It's usually flipping the bird, whereas in the UK there's both the bird and the V's. Supposedly the V's emerge from Agincourt, the idea that the French claimed that if they caught a hold of any of these English archers, they would cut off their fingers so that they could never pull a bowstring again. And of course, as the English were successful in their war or battle against the French, the archers were all there saying, haha, look, I have my fingers still because we won. I don't know whether that's historically accurate. It's a nice story, but that isn't why I'm flicking the V's in the thumbnail. The reason I'm flicking the V's in the thumbnail, other than the fact I'm enjoying doing it, is because this is take 2 of the Onyx Path news. The first take sadly aborted due to some audio issues. So that video has been deleted. I hope you don't miss it too much. I'm sure I said something utterly profound. I do hope Gal Rukin makes his way to this Onyx Path news as well, because he appears for every other one of our frequent viewers, and I would be very sad if he's watching the old stream hoping that it progresses when it isn't going to. So Gal, if you're here and you can hear me and you can see me, please comment, and it will reassure me that, thank goodness Gal Rukin is here. We can all give a thumbs up now for Gal, because Gal has made it. Gal is here with us, and that means the show can go on. Gal, you're a hero. You have saved Halloween. Now, we're not just here to celebrate the life of Gal Rukin, which sounds like a eulogy. We're here to talk about some upcoming Onyx Path news, well, present-day Onyx Path news, but some upcoming products and some soon-to-end Kickstarters. Of course, the Kickstarter that we've got going on right now is Ghost Hunters, which is a World of Darkness sourcebook. You may be familiar with the World of Darkness sourcebooks as opposed to Chronicles of Darkness sourcebooks from their black border. I'll see if I can find one from my capacious shelves. There is one there, but you're not going to be able to get it out because there's a Scarlands Creature Collection wedging it in. But back in the day of the original World of Darkness, the 90s, there were, of course, Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf the Apocalypse, Mage the Ascension, and so on. But there were also setting neutral World of Darkness books that you could theoretically bolt on to any one of the World of Darkness core books. They weren't games in their own right, they were add-ons. And that's what Ghost Hunters is. Ghost Hunters isn't a sourcebook specifically for Wraith, for instance. It isn't a sourcebook specifically for Vampire. It's a sourcebook that can work in any World of Darkness setting. And I've been interviewed quite a lot about this book. I think a lot of people are very interested in the fact that we're doing another 20th anniversary product. They're very interested in the concept of playing as mortals in the World of Darkness when that's never really been an advertised feature. In the World of Darkness, you tend to play as supernatural creatures. And this one has really grabbed people's imaginations. We've received a lot of backing on our Kickstarter so far, which ends on the 31st on Halloween. And hopefully we're going to make it to 1,000 backers. That would be delightful. Let's see where we are now. We currently have 986. So in 3 days, can we get another 14 and not have any dropouts? That's a possibility. We may be able to get there. But Ghost Hunters is a book that we have been developing for the last 4 years. I first wrote my section for this book in 2016 and only recently came on as co-developer to kind of get it over the edge, ready for the Kickstarter. And it's a wonderful work that takes a lot of inspiration from all the ghost media, the movies, the TV shows, the short stories of M.R. James and such that we all love. And it's something that's incredibly accessible to a great, wide and varied audience. As much as I love Werewolf the Apocalypse, for instance, there aren't many pieces of media out there where the werewolf is relatable, where a werewolf's tribe, where a werewolf's background is explored, and you get to empathize with those characters. In Ghost Hunter media and media surrounding ghosts in general, there's a lot more humanity, and the people relating to it are mortal. And so we as viewers tend to relate to it as well. And I think that's partly what's made Ghost Hunters such a popular concept. It was also for the New World of Darkness when, let's see, I think I've got it back here. We've got the Book of Spirits, we've got ghost stories there. And I'm just really thrilled to see how well it's doing. It's a book that enables you to play, whether it's government-sponsored ghost hunters, whether it's Arcanum researchers, whether it's reality TV crews running around a haunted house just trying to prove the existence of a ghost and stick it on Twitch or YouTube. There's a lot of variety. You've got mediums in there. You've got a whole bevy of case files. You've got character creation rules specifically for Ghost Hunters 2. And you've got tools and devices that you can use, technology that Ghost Hunters will use, and a brilliant chapter on storytelling, which is something that's often overlooked, I think, in our books, because when you're a practiced storyteller, you may think, I can skip the storytelling chapter. But in this book, it really goes into a lot of depth as to how to run a good ghost story, because ghost stories tend to be a little more narrative than monster stories where you have to run up to something and slay it. Ghosts are creatures that you can relate to, as I mentioned, are narrative devices as well. And I think you can go, one way or the other. They don't always have to be homicidal. They don't always have to be utterly sadistic or completely deranged. They can be incredibly relatable antagonists and supporting characters. And I think that means your games can gain more a mystery feel, more suspense, more like The Shining, I suppose, than, let's say, Hostel. Yeah, I'm really proud of my work on it. I'm really proud of the team's work on it, and I'm really proud of how well the Kickstarter's going. So please, if you haven't checked Ghost Hunters out yet, it is on Kickstarter. You can pair it with any World of Darkness game, and it works. My favorite game to actually pair it with is Werewolf the Apocalypse, which has taken some people by surprise. We don't have Exorcism as a rule set, Omanal, because I'm just responding to someone in the live chat, because we position ghosts in this game more as these narrative devices. You have to play through the story. It's less of a mechanical, I know how to beat every single ghost, so much as every single ghost is its own separate puzzle. In that respect, I think it shares a lot of DNA with the way Chronicles of Darkness treats cosmic entities and angels and so on. That each one has its own riddle, its own sort of forbiddance. But yeah, I'm a big fan of pairing Ghost Hunters with Werewolf the Apocalypse. That's how I've done it. I've ran 2 Chronicles now of Ghost Hunters. One I paired with Werewolf. The other one I decided to just shift into Chronicles of Darkness and pair with Hunter the Vigil. Because it's a very easy game to adapt to Chronicles of Darkness as well. It's largely setting. There's a bit of mechanics in there, but the mechanics are easily interchangeable between storyteller and storytelling. That's quite all right. I'm glad to help you, Omanal. And what I found interesting pairing it with Werewolf the Apocalypse is you've got 2 different groups essentially approaching something ephemeral from a very different perspective. And it really shines a light on how encapsulated werewolves, and not just werewolves, changelings and mages are the same as well, that are so wrapped up in their own experience of the world that they can't stop and think of things from a mundane perspective. So a werewolf may believe a cairn is under threat because there's something spiritual there, and they may try tackling it in all the traditional ways, but it's not a spirit, it's not a totem, it's not a bane, it's a dead person who has come back as a restless spirit, a restless ghost. And so then you have humans coming in, mortals coming in, who are able to understand that a little better than they're able to understand werewolf culture, the Garou nation and their history. Humans know nothing about the worm or the weaver or the wild or anything like that. But through the media they consume, they are aware of ghosts and the kinds of things that might keep ghosts around. So you have this crossing of universes, of expectations and cultures, which I think really makes an interesting crossover game. Anyway, so that's Ghost Hunters. As I say, the Kickstarter ends on Halloween, so if you haven't backed it yet, please do so. And I also wanted to talk a little about a release that's coming out today. That's our print-on-demand copy of Titanomachy, easy for me to say. Titanomachy is a huge book of antagonists, a bestiary, if you will, or monster manual for the Scion role-playing game. And I know that there's quite a few story guides out there who have tried running Scion and haven't necessarily been able to understand what to position against their protagonists. They just haven't been able to think that far ahead using the core book. And I think that's a completely understandable issue to have. A lot of people have that issue when they're playing D&D. I remember when third edition Dungeons and Dragons came out and the Player's Handbook came out first, then a little while later was the Dungeon Master's Guide, and then you were waiting for the Monster Manual. So you had to structure adventures around your perceptions about what all these monsters should look like. And so it's a similar thing with Scion. Titanomachy fills a big hole in the setting and the rules set. There are monsters in Scion Origin and Scion Hero and Scion Demigod, but this really expands the range, and it does so in a marvelous way. It's brilliantly written. And the reason I wanted to bring your attention to it in particular is because, as I say, it's available in print on demand today. And right now, I guess out of time of recording, it's only available in PDF, and it's already a gold seller on DriveThruRPG. Now, that isn't being braggadocious. That's not me saying, haha, look at us, how well we're doing. But it is hopefully a representation of how popular this book has been in PDF only. So we're really looking forward to seeing how it does in print on demand too. The art throughout this book is fantastic. The writers did a superb job, the developer too, and I really think you should check out Titanomachy. If what draws you to Scion is the idea of mythology come to life, all of your cyclopean beasts, all of your creatures of Norse mythology, of I guess Aztec mythology, and so on. And yeah, Ariadne Quinn, who is in the chat right now, is humbly saying the art is okay. Ariadne, under her real name, is one of the artists on that book, so it's lovely to see you again. I know all of these things. I know all of you, especially if I've role played with you before. So anyhow, please do check out Titanomachy. It really scratches an itch I felt needed scratching for Scion as a player, as a story guide myself. I don't mind creating things, but I love to have it to hand if I need it. And I'm also a massive fan of bestiaries, as anyone knows if they've seen me in an interview before or seen me on here before, how many times I've spoken about Shunned by the Moon or the Creature Collection or something like that. And Titanomachy really does that for me, for Scion. So what else? Well, coming this week, and do stay tuned to our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/The Onyx Path. We've got a lot of Scarred Lands content coming. It's been very interesting. Over the last few months, Scarred Lands has very much risen in popularity. Maybe it's the amount of pushing we've been doing with it on our various media platforms. Perhaps people have just been very interested in exploring a new Dungeons and Dragons setting. I don't know. But it's also quite possible it's the quality of the work coming through and the popularity of the Sluresian Vault, which has had a large number of very popular titles released on it, such as the we've got the Chase Across Gelspad from Vengeance of the Shunned. We've got the entire Vengeance of the Shunned campaign put together on the Sluresian Vault. So if you like your adventure paths, your Curse of Strahd style lengthy campaigns, you've got one right there on the Sluresian Vault. That's DriveThruRPG.com/cc/19/Sluresian Vault or /Sluresian-Vault. You may not remember that, so it's in the links down below. If you're a D&D player, there's a huge amount of fantastic content for the Scarred Land setting, which you can easily adapt to Forgotten Realms, Greyhawk, hell, Mystara, Birthright, if you really want to. This is a setting we all love, Onyx Path, and we're so pleased to see more and more people falling in love with it. But I'm not just here to talk to you about how fantastic Vengeance of the Shund and Travis Legg and his team's brilliant work has been. I'm also to tell you about the Frostlands of Fenrilik, which is the brand new campaign setting for Scarred Lands, a new continent, if you will, which is our sort of Arctic, our polar environment, where everything is very chilly and very threatening, where the environment itself wants to kill you. And Fenrilik is a special location because we are opening up the entire continent to community content. We want the community to design what this continent looks like and steadily put all of this material together. And so if you are an aspiring writer, artist, developer, what have you, then please do check out the Sluresian Vault. The Frostlands of Fenrilik are opening up as of the end of this week, and you will be able to create all kinds of wonderful wintry D&D antagonists, adventure hooks, treasures, spells, magical items, whatever you really want. And I always say this, but don't feel like you have to be a master artist, a master craftsman, or a well-skilled writer in order to create this material. The material, whether it's on Sluresian Vault, Storypath Nexus, Storytellers Vault, or DM's Guild, sometimes it's successful. In fact, it's sometimes even more successful if it's just a 2-page example character. It could be that all the way through to a 200-page campaign. So don't feel like you have to hit run a marathon before you've run a sprint. You can literally just write up a character or a couple of pages of adventure hooks and put it up there and hopefully make some money from it. Or if you just want people to see your work, put it up there for free or pay what you want. We give, you are completely given the option, but if you do sell it, excellent, good for you, because you're going to earn some money from it. And you are, of course, free to promote these products wherever you see fit, whether it's on your social media, on your YouTube channels, your Twitch channels. If you are a fan of the Scarred Lands, please do start running games of Scarred Lands on social media, because we will be more than happy to promote them. So yeah, that is Scarred Lands. And before I sign off, I just wanted to talk a little about Let the Streets Run Red for Vampire the Masquerade. This is probably the book I've been going on about more than any other, which is strange because Let the Streets Run Red is a stretch goal to Chicago by Night. And therefore, we made it with the expectation that a lot of people who purchased Chicago by Night are just going to be getting the PDF for free. It was part of the Kickstarter. But that could give you cause to think, well, they're not going to put as much effort in, or they're not going to give it as much time, or something like that. And that's definitely not been the case. It's a strange thing, but Let the Streets Run Red, which has had all of its errata and page XXs completed now, is one of my proudest projects to have developed, because it is truly very, very difficult for writers to come up with scenarios for Vampire the Masquerade. Not because Vampire is a hard game to storytell, quite the contrary, but because players of Vampire and storytellers of Vampire create worlds and games around the player characters, as they should. So a player character is largely defined by who their touchstones are, who their allies are, who their contacts are, who is in their immediate vicinity. And we as writers have no way of knowing that in advance, unless we create a bunch of pre-generated characters that you're obligated to play. And that poses its own issue, because not everyone wants to play a pre-gen. So we have the issue. Do we create stories where it doesn't matter who your characters are, they are forced to go on these adventures, which provides a certain level of, requires a certain level of investment, that goes beyond necessarily what a player character may choose to do? Or do we make the stories as, I guess, wide open as possible, so that players can access them no matter who their characters are, or so that they feel like those stories are tailored to their player characters no matter who they are? And I feel like with Let the Streets Run Red, we really managed to succeed in closing that loop. and it's no small thing. I'm a big fan of the White Wolf Chronicles, the lengthy Chronicles, Giovanni Chronicles, Transylvania Chronicles, Ventrue Chronicle. They're all behind me. And yet I'm aware that those are, in some cases, horribly linear stories that take a lot of agency away from player characters. And somehow, all credit to them, the writers on Let the Streets Run Red managed to create stories that didn't feel like that did feel like they could do pretty much whatever they wanted and everything would have consequences, but they've basically created open worlds with strong plots that if the players choose to not engage with them, they can choose other things to engage with, and it won't make the entire thing a worthless exercise. So it's hard for me to explain, but it's wonderful as a developer to see writers coming up with these fantastic ideas and seeing them put into practice successfully. It's quite rare for World of Darkness to see that happen. It's so easy to have every single mission be, the prince tells you to do this, so you do it. And that's absolutely fine. And in fact, that's how I'd recommend most stories start, most chronicles for new players start, because everyone needs a jumping off point. But you can't write every single story like that. You can't have every single story commanded by an elder who's threatening to kill you if you don't do what they say. None of the Let the Streets Run Red stories have that conceit, in my opinion. So yeah, really happy with how those have all worked out. I also think it's a beautiful book. The artist did a wonderful job. And as that PDF has gone out to backers of Chicago by Night, please, if you have read it, if you have played any of them, or if you intend to play any of them, do stream, do make reviews, do leave reviews on DriveThruRPG when you can. And soon, very soon, I imagine, within the next couple of weeks, we should see a print-on-demand version of that and the PDF version being released to general public. We will tell you when that is going to happen. So yes, we will be releasing it for sale in PDF and print on demand to answer the people in the comments. And good morning to Paladin Demo to Springfield. I prefer Shelbyville myself, and the monorail. So Caravalos asks, people are drilling on the floor beneath me, keeping me from sleeping. What sort of help would you send me? Earmuffs, Caravalos. I think earmuffs would be what's called for. And they will also help you in the cold winter months. And of course, if you decided to venture to Fenrilik to tell a story or two. There you go. There, I managed to keep it on topic. So let's see. Are there any questions from any of the viewers of the Onyx Path News today? Because if not, I will be signing off and having some lunch. So let's see. Of course, if someone just posts, go have your lunch, I'll go and do that because, you know, I'm a hungry man. Any questions at all from the viewers of the Onyx Path News that don't relate to drilling? Ekorin was the first one in to say, go have your lunch, but Gal Rukin followed up with, since I ordered myself a print-on-demand version of M20, Mage the Ascension 20th Anniversary Edition for my birthday, what's going on with Technocracy Reloaded? Technocracy Reloaded is a book that is having all of its arts contracted. I believe we've contracted all of it, and so the art is just rolling in. And when we're in the art direction phase of a book, really all we can do is wait for the artists to complete their work. Some artists are fast, some artists aren't, and some artists are reliable. Most artists that we deal with are reliable, some aren't, and therefore we are kind of beholden to the freelancers who work for us and the speed at which they work. Same for writing too, but one could argue that art is a more is a lengthier process depending on the complicated nature of the art. So whenever the art is all in for Technocracy Reloaded, you are going to see it laid out and sent out to backers of that Kickstarter. So there you go. So Ariadne Quinn says, nice seeing your face. I can always remember your face, Ariadne, from the scene in Club Deep when we played Vampire the Masquerade that time. And I did my dancing to What Is Love by Hadaway. It will never be forgotten. Schrodinger's cat says, what are you having for lunch? I have ordered a Domino's pizza because I decided to completely do away with any benefit I had from going to the gym this morning. Any news on Cult of the Blood God, says Daniel Atson. Yes, it's in second proofing. It will be this week. So I've already proofed it once. I will be proofing it again this week, which means we are rolling along and getting very close to backers getting their copy. Let's see. What's this from Mr. Cavalcanti? I got here late. Any news on Squeaks in the Deep? Yeah, it's being written. And it's from what Eddie's told me, it was really going very well. It was a project I sadly had to decline working on because I had so many other projects at the time, but I'm really looking forward to it. I love the Realms of Pugmire. What Eddie's done with it is such a breath of fresh air for me, who is generally immersed up to my chin in just horror, miserable horror. And Pugmire and They Came From games don't tend to be that. So Squeaks in the Deep, keep your eyes open for that, because hopefully we should be kickstarting it at some point in the next few months. Any news on when Scion Demigod will get on Backakit, says Agent 29416. Scion Demigod will go on Backakit usually about a month and a half after the Kickstarter concludes. So I imagine you'll probably see it around early to mid-November. That's a guess. How does Ghost Hunters tie into the other Ghost-related World of Darkness game, says Chase. So it can be a crossover with any World of Darkness game. And in particular, it ties in very, very well to Orpheus if you wish it to. And I would say that it does work very well with Wraith, but the one thing you want to avoid with tying it into Wraith is making your ghosts too granular. And in a way, it's taking the mystery away from what ghosts are. When you're playing mortals in a game of Ghost Hunters, and much like it when you were playing Orpheus back in the early 2000s, your experience of ghosts was largely their passions and their fetters. You didn't get to see their arcane, or you didn't know anything about their pathos. You didn't know anything about their shadow, because you were a human, or most of your characters were mortals. And that means, I think, when you pair Ghost Hunters with Wraith, it provides you with a wholly different experience. So if you're just playing a group of mortals, or if you're playing mortals of the Giovanni family with a Giovanni vampire, that kind of thing. Marcelo Gonzalez, I know who you are, Mark, says, just saying hi, enjoy your lunch. And I also have one from a language I can't understand, saying, always nice to see you, sir gentlemen. And pizza, yes, pizza is indeed lovely. So what else do we have here? Any top of your head plot hooks to offer? A friend of mine thinks the Sabbat should have more mystical elements, such as a right to turn mass embraces into whites. Where do you recommend looking for more mystical aspects of that sect? That's a very good question. Right to the Blood is a very good book, but to be honest, until a V5 Sabbat book comes out, you really can't go wrong with the Guide to the Sabbat. And that may sound like an easy answer, but it's very interesting. What I've found through talking with people, and I've had to talk to a lot of people about World of Darkness over the years, is that when people remember the Guide to the Sabbat and the Guide to the Camarilla, specifically the Guide to the Sabbat, they always remember the bloodlines and the anti-tribute. They very rarely remember all the retie, all of the Sabbat rituals, all the Sabbat practices, all of the Sabbat history, and so on that also exists in that book. And it is a really good book. So do check out the Guide to the Sabbat if you haven't. It's on DriveThruRPG. I caught rumor that another tribe fell to the worm in W5. Is this true, says Paladin Demo? If it were, I would not confirm it in an episode of the Onyx Path News. That would be an odd place to release a big piece of news like that, wouldn't it? Yeah, sod it. The Silverfangs all fell to the worm. The Shadow Lords fell to the Weaver. And the Children of Gaia fell to the Wild. It's a massacre out there. None of this is true. None of this is true. So you'll just have to wait and see. Anyway, I'm going to go and I'm going to enjoy some food, and I hope that the rest of you have a lovely day. If you haven't backed Ghost Hunters yet, you don't have long left to do it, so please do check out Ghost Hunters Kickstarter. It is in the link below. If you're a fan of Scion, buy a copy of Titanomachy in print on demand today, because why the hell not? It's not like any of us are getting out and doing anything else right now. And if you love your D&D and your fantasy, do check out the Frostlands of Fenrilik when it comes out, and do check out our Twitch channel, because we have lots of Scarredlands content to come, and Scarredlands is a brilliant setting. Yeah, and by all means, spread all over the place. Matthew Dawkins said every tribe has fallen to the worm. Werewolf the Apocalypse 5th edition has a completely new set of tribes. Why not? Let's go with that. All right, bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.